Can you confirm that the agreement struck without the better off overall test will expire after 2 years? What will happen then to workers' pay? And why shouldn't employers have to prove exceptional circumstances if they want a lower pay rather than just that it's appropriate in all the circumstances?
When you look at the way that this clause was used previously, it wasn't. There were 4 times. It was usually used around things like flexible hours arrangements and shift patterns. They weren't debates about pay. For a start, this is a time-limited, COVID-specific exemption that builds on the existing exemption that Labor built into the Act. If you ever did get an exemption for an agreement under this provision, that agreement would only last for 2 years. That's the nominal expiry that exists already in section 189. And after the nominal expiry of 2 years, either of the parties to the agreement can apply to the FairWork Commission to have the agreement terminated, which the Commission must do unless it's not in the public interest. So these things, if they ever did occur, would only last for 2 years.
Building on Labor, why is it the test appropriate in all the circumstances rather than exceptional circumstances?
Well, the test builds on exceptional circumstances and specifies that the exceptional circumstances that must exist here are with respect to COVID. So its terms are quite clear. And when you look at the Labor test, right, you've got to get this right in the question. The Labor test says because there are exceptional circumstances and then talks about a short-term crisis. And we're talking about the specific exceptional circumstance of COVID, which has to be shown to have had an impact on the business and be the necessary driver for the changes that you want to make.
If I work for the Great Barrier Reef tours, and the FairWork Commission approves one of these deals for 2 years, and say I take a 5% pay cut, my fellow co-workers, and the deal expires at the end of the 2 years, then we renegotiate a new EBA, do I have to be better off in comparison to the emergency EBA or my conditions before the emergency? Does that become a new
hypothetical questions I've ever heard?
But what becomes the new floor for your future EBA?
Well, I think the confusion there is that in the first instance, the boot test is about a comparison to awards.
Okay.
Right.
So you go back to the award.
So the likelihood of people being paid less than an award, either through the present section 189 or the modest extension to it that we are suggesting as a COVID-specific extension, I'd say is very, very, very low. You're usually talking about things like have been occurred in the past, like shift patterns and roster arrangements and these types of things.
So on the structure of the boot, the new factors include the impact of COVID. Is that something that the company is able to assert the impact, or do they have to show evidence to the FairWork Commission that their, say, profit has declined by a specific amount to take?
I mean, the FairWork Commission deals in evidence, right? So it's going to be a high bar for any business to cross. But if you ever got to the point where the impact of coronavirus, known as COVID-19, on the enterprise or enterprises to which the agreement relates gets to the point where it is in the public interest, and both the employers and the employees are agreeing to a change because they both think that change is going to preserve jobs and keep the business going and people won't be out of work, they're the types of circumstances based on evidence that the Fair Work Commission, as the independent umpire, would be considering. But again, it's not at all dissimilar to the exemption built in by Labor to the present bill. It's COVID-specific, yes. It's time-bound, yes. We think it represents common sense. And there may be a handful of businesses over the next 2 years in particularly distressed areas that do need to agree changes, and where the employers and the employees, potentially even the representatives of the employees, the unions, agree that this is necessary and put that application up.
So companies that have done well during the pandemic, Coles, Woolworths, Bunnings, you don't think that
I just can't see how they could possibly make that case. I mean, and you're right, Andrew, some businesses have done well because of the peculiar circumstances that have arisen in the pandemic. Another group of businesses have really struggled but are growing back very quickly. Another group of businesses, again, particularly those related to the movement of international passengers, are going to find it really tough for a considerable period of time. And I think they're particularly the businesses that we want to give every opportunity, not just through the other measures in this bill, but through making it easier to have an enterprise agreement in the usual run of business established for that business. But in exceptional circumstances, it may be that they present something to the Fair Work Commission under Section 189, as they can do at the moment.
Can I just clarify too, Minister, this can't be applied, this boot, non-compliance boot thing can't be applied to existing awards. It's only new ones struck in the 2 years after assent. Is that
You're confusing the language with respect to, again, existing awards are the award system. You're talking about...
agreement, sorry. So if I've got an EBA that runs for the next 3 years,
you
that can't be changed, that can't be altered.
Well, you can make an application for a new enterprise agreement, but you've got to wait for old ones to reach their expiry date. That's right.
Doesn't it show the perils of having introduced elements to the bill that weren't discussed in the roundtable process? And you know, given these, it's come after that process, shouldn't you just take it out of the bill for, you know, good faith reasons? Because the ACTU weren't shown it.
So we should take stuff out of the bill because there's disagreement about stuff. You'd never legislate anything, ever. I mean, and what we as a government say is that when you're encountering practical problems, you're looking to institute practical solutions. Now, not every single practical solution was discussed or raised during the 150 hours worth of consultation. Some of them came from other sources. This is one which we think is just a modest time-bound change that could cater for a small group of circumstances and a small group of businesses and ensure their survival, which must mean that people are overall better off, because if the business doesn't survive, then people don't have a business and people don't have a job.